Now there are a couple things we still need to do before we're ready to start writing code. The first is set our Firebase database rules. Now we're not going to take an in-depth look at the different types of Firebase database rules we can set, but Firebase does have a great set of documentation for its database, and that documentation can be found from the home page in the Docs selection. And then from that selection, we will go ahead and scroll down to the real-time database documentation and click on it. And from here, you can learn all about the different types of rules and configurations for the Firebase database that you may want to set. For our purposes, however, we're going to set very simple database rules. And we do this by going to our console, selecting the project that we want to configure, selecting the database option, navigating to rules, and setting both our read and write rules to true. This will allow any user to read and write to and from our database. Now, we don't want to use these rules in a production application that's live to the public, but we can use them for development purposes to just very simply interact with our database. To ensure we don't accidentally deploy our application with development settings for our database, we'll want to make sure that our database.rules.json file always contains our production rules. This way, when we deploy our application to production, it will override our database rules and set them to the appropriate production rules. The next thing we'll need to configure is our authentication, and we'll do this by selecting the Authentication tab and navigating to the sign-in method. Firebase allows us to let users sign in using either their email and password, their Google account, their Facebook account, their Twitter account, their GitHub account, or being an anonymous user. We're going to want to set both the anonymous and email/password options to be enabled, and we do this by clicking on the little pencil and clicking the Enable slider. Then we'll save it and do the same for the anonymous selection. The final thing we need to do is add some JavaScript to our application that will allow it to interface with Firebase. We do this by going to our project overview and selecting the type of application that we're creating. In our case, we're creating a web app, so we're going to click Add Firebase to your web app. That'll pop up a bit of JavaScript that we'll want to include in our web page. So we'll copy this JavaScript, and in our index.html file that was created in our public directory when we initialized our Firebase project, I'm going to go ahead and clean up our head and body elements, and then add our scripts that are provided via the Firebase project to our body. And I will go ahead and lastly add some tabs to those scripts to make them nice and aligned in our body. And that's it. We're now ready to start building our Angular application.